Hello and welcome to yet another fantastic episode of the British Culture Podcast. As usual, I'm joined here today by Sam. Sam, is everything well on your end?
I'm doing splendid. Thank you for asking, James. As some of you may notice, I'm in a different location. I have just moved apartments here in Chile. So, for the first time in my life, I don't have roommates. How incredible.
That must be fantastic. I hate roommates. I want to kill them every time I see them in the kitchen. Anyways, the topic of today's video is going to be crime.
Wait, James,
Sorry.
James.
Here we go.
Sorry, guys. I know you hate when we do this.
Here
but
it comes.
Check. Links down below. English Sponge. Lots of videos. Comprehensible input. Yada, yada, yada. Off you go.
Fantastic, really professional promo there.
Oh no, I thought so.
So the topic of today's video is going to be crime and safety in the UK. Like, is the UK a safe place? Is it a safe country? Or is it somewhere where you always have to be watching your back, watching your belongings, and always looking over your shoulder? To be honest, Sam, my first question is very general, but it's basically this. Would you call the UK a safe country? I know that question is a bit subjective, but do you think it's a safe country?
Yeah. So, as you said, it's a subjective question. So, what I want to say first is to give an understanding of when you tell me safety, what do I think about? Now, when I am measuring the safety of a place, I don't tend to use statistics. I don't tend to use numbers. I tend to use feelings, how I feel in that place. Those feelings may not always match up with the numbers, but I think safety is not something you can hold. It's something you really feel about a place. And as many of you know, I have spent the last year and a half living in major South American cities. So I can say without a doubt that yes, the UK is a very safe place to live.
Yeah, I would kind of agree. In comparison to certain other countries, it definitely is extremely safe. And I probably didn't appreciate this very much until I did travel to more dangerous countries. And then when you come back to the UK, you think, well, you know what, things are actually really safe here. Of course, it's not perfectly safe. There is crime here. There is, of course, crime. But I think that compared to most places in the world, it is probably, aside from like Japan and Singapore, which are incredibly safe countries, the UK has to be in the top 40 safest countries in the world, probably. Would you agree with that, Sam? Probably.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know the numbers, so I don't want to give out a number and have people quote me. But it is a very safe country. Of course, if we start comparing, people tend to always compare upwards. They say, oh, well, it's not as safe as Japan, or it's not as safe as South Korea, or it's not as safe as, I don't know, wherever. Of course, if we start looking upwards, yes, there are places that are much safer than the UK. But as somebody who has grown up in the UK, who lived there for 23 years of my life, it is a really safe country.
So Sam, you lived in the UK for 23 years of your life. Were you ever the victim of a crime during your time living here?
Several, yeah, several. I was once punched in the nose outside of a nightclub.
More violence. Yep.
Well, this time I didn't do anything. Okay, so I came out of a nightclub at university, and I stumbled upon somebody I know having a fight with somebody else. I'm not a violent person in my adult years, so I have always tried to stay away from violent situations, not throw myself into the middle of bad things that happened. But it was my friend in there, so I was trying to calm the situation down, trying to bring peace, trying to stop them from fighting, because if they got caught fighting by the police, they would have gone to jail for the night and they might have gotten charges. And the guy's friend came out of nowhere and punched me square in the nose. I have to give the guy credit, right? Because it was a phenomenal punch. Like it was excellent. Like he really did a number on me. And I'm pretty sure he broke my nose. My nose is not exactly straight, and it hasn't been straight since that day, unfortunately. Opened me up like a tap. Unfortunately, I was bleeding quite heavily.
So let me get this straight for a second. You got punched square in the nose. You obviously didn't go to see the doctor to see if your nose had been broken.
No.
But it's likely that it probably was broken. You just never bothered to get it checked out.
Well, I did, in fact, go to the doctor. I really hope my mum is not watching this podcast, because she is going to send me a text message and kill me because I lied to her about this story. So I actually went to the doctor the next day because I thought I might be concussed, right? When you get a big blow to the head and your brain rattles against your skull, a concussion is the medical term for that. It's often with headache, sometimes you feel nauseous. So I thought I might be concussed. But the other possibility is that I was massively hungover and just fighting for my life against the hangover. So what happened is I got myself a taxi to the hospital that next day, sat in A&E, which is accident and emergency, is where you go for any sort of major problems. I sat in there for about 6 hours and I hadn't been seen. So I had to think to myself and I was like, well, I haven't died yet. So if this is a concussion, I would have died by now, right? If there was something seriously wrong, we would know. It's like 18 plus hours since I got punched. I'm not waiting any longer. I'm going home. So I just walked out of there.
You can always rely on the NHS, National Health Service, to take care of you when you're in trouble.
Well, it was really busy, right? As you know, James, British hospitals are absolutely jam-packed, about 24 hours of the day. And I think they could also tell that I was not dying. And people entering the hospital were, right? So I can hold my hands up. Yes, I should have been seen much quicker. Yes, it's bad that the waiting time was that long. But I'm happy that people who were having heart attacks were seen before me. They probably deserved to be seen. I just got punched in the face.
So that is assault, I guess, right? That's the name of the crime that you were a victim of. That's assault. I assume nothing happened to the perpetrator of this crime.
No, I ain't no snitch.
You ain't no snitch. I think you're... what are you, part of some kind of criminal gang?
I'm actually part of a major criminal enterprise here in Chile. For those of you, in case you don't know the slang, a snitch is somebody who tells on other people. You can be a snitch at school. So if your friend did something and you went and told the teacher, that is being a snitch. You are snitching on them. But it also refers to telling the police after a crime has been committed.
So that's obviously a fairly serious crime in my book. Have you been the victim of any more like minor crimes in the UK at all?
No, I've never been robbed in the UK. In terms of crimes, it's very minimal. That is the only story I have. And that's because I got involved in something I shouldn't have got involved in. But outside of that, I'm from just outside of West London, so it's not like it's not the nicest place in the world. It's not the safest part of the UK. But even still, I've never really encountered many issues. What about you, James?
Not really. The place where I live is a village in Oxfordshire. So,
The ends.
nothing happens here. There is no... to be honest, things have changed, and maybe we can talk about that. I probably will talk about that. But when I was growing up, I was extremely safe. I mean, I could walk around my village at 4 in the morning. I could wear like a Rolex watch, like wearing my headphones, walking around. Nothing would happen. Nobody's going to rob you in this village, right? And so that's kind of the level of safety that we had like 10 years ago. Things have kind of changed. But we never used to lock our front door. You know, our front door was open all the time. Anybody
Now
could
that
have,
is that's a privilege that I didn't have. We
yeah,
definitely locked our front door. For you listening, please don't think that that's common in the UK.
definitely not common anywhere in West London, and definitely not in a city, but in like a village, like I think it's used to be sort of the way things were in small villages and stuff. Like we used to know all our neighbors and stuff, right? Like I would see people walking past on the street, like I know him, I know her, I know that guy. And so we're all people that I knew. And we used to leave our garage unlocked. We would leave bikes out on the front garden. I would just dump my bike on the front garden and go inside, and it would never occur to me that somebody would steal it. It was kind of, yeah, it was good. Although unfortunately nowadays you need to lock your doors because the amount of crime in this area has gone up a little bit. You need to lock your doors, lock your garage, and definitely lock your bike. Bike theft, I think, has become pretty common in the UK. I don't know if it was always common, but I feel like it's a bit more common nowadays. Would you say, like, you need to always lock up your bike, right? You need like a proper D-lock. You can't just get like a lock with a chain, like a weak chain, because there's a chance that somebody's going to come with some tools to cut off the chain
Yeah.
and steal your bike. Is that true where you live as well?
Yeah, so I don't, like you said, I don't know if it has gotten more common, but it is common. So I used to work as a lifeguard. I was a lifeguard at a swimming pool for a little while. And what frequently happened is there was a place to lock up your bikes in front of the leisure centre. And people would come along with power tools. They would steal tools from the back of vans and lorries. So they would first break into a van to steal power tools. They would then find whatever bikes they could, drill or sort of grind the locks off of the bike, steal the bike and sell them. So yeah, that does happen quite commonly, especially in slightly poorer areas.
That is generally the level of crime in the UK, right? We're not like Japan. The stories I've heard from Japan is like if you leave your wallet on the train, that like somebody will take the wallet and like come to your house and find you to give the wallet back, right? That's what I've heard about Japan. I wonder if that's true or not. No, you need to take care of your things. Yeah, you can be robbed. People will steal things from you. Yes, but you're not really in danger, right? You're probably not going to be attacked or killed or stabbed or anything like that. Generally speaking, your physical safety is sort of okay, but you do need to have some common sense awareness of your belongings, because there is crime here in the UK, and if you leave your laptop sitting in the cafe for like an hour or something, it would get taken in that time.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah, what I would add to that, just before we move on, is that a lot of the crime, especially the theft, which is a big issue, is opportunistic.
Yeah.
It is not common for people to be held up. To be held up means someone points a weapon at you and robs you. That is very uncommon in the UK. It's very rare that I hear about normal people having that experience, whereas in other places it is quite common. So it's very rare for that to happen, but what we have is opportunistic crime. You leave your laptop on the table at a cafe whilst you go to the toilet. Someone steals it. Yep. You are walking with your head looking at Google Maps, headphones in, not paying attention. Somebody drives up onto the pavement with a motorbike and steals your phone or your bag out of your hand. It is not things that attack you. They just want to get the item and go as quickly as possible.
Yes, I would say we can talk about some advice for anybody who's going to be visiting the UK. At the end of this podcast, we will give you some tips for avoiding crime and staying safe. But yeah, you very rarely hear about any major crime like an abduction or a kidnapping or something. And of course, you almost never hear about a shooting because guns are banned here. Yes.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit,
Okay.
James.
Yeah.
You do not hear much about shootings in the south of England. However, the Midlands, especially Nottingham, Birmingham, Coventry, the Midlands do scare me quite a bit in relation to gun crime. You do hear about a lot more gun crime in those areas, and it is a much bigger problem, especially as the police have less resources to tackle that sort of issue.
The thing is, I think this is a fairly new development for a lot of reasons. There are a few more guns in the UK. I think you can now 3D print guns as well. So you can
try. You get caught doing it a lot.
I'm sure. I mean, I haven't. You would know. You're the one who's in a criminal gang. I'm a normal civilian. But there are. Yeah, I think occasionally you will hear of a shooting. When I was growing up, you would never hear that. Whereas nowadays, once in a blue moon, you may hear some story on the news of somebody being involved in a shooting, but it's not really common. It's kind of just once in a blue moon, right? However, of course, we should probably start talking a bit about knife crime, because while the USA and America is quite well known for shootings and mass shootings and guns, of course, we have knives in this country, and I think that knife crime is a bit of a problem, quite a major problem in London. Sam, as a Londoner, I don't suppose you have a bit more insight into sort of like the knife crime situation in London at the moment?
I do, and unfortunately, I'm someone who has been affected personally by this issue. I lost a friend a few years ago as a result of knife crime. An unfortunate reality of being young, growing up in a city or around a city, because I want to clarify I'm not from London directly, but growing up in or around a city in the UK is knife crime is very common, and it's quite difficult to find a young man of my age who hasn't been affected by it, at least indirectly, friend of a friend type situation. It is a major issue for young people, and it's something that is, really problematic.
Yeah, I wonder.
Go on. Go.
I was just going to say, I wonder if it would really be the same outside of London, in other towns and cities. I mean, growing up, I didn't know anybody who was ever a victim of knife crime, but then again, I don't live in a big city, so perhaps it's a very different situation.
Birmingham, Manchester, Nottingham, Coventry, Liverpool, and the sort of especially the suburbs of Manchester and Liverpool, places like Oldham, places like Bolton, it is a serious issue. It's everywhere. It's not just London.
Okay. Yeah. So London, the whole country, I guess, especially on the news on London, you quite often hear about a stabbing. Do you think it's just random is it random people that would be the victim of a knife crime? Like you're walking down the street and then suddenly you're stabbed? Or is it going to be more likely people is it people who are involved in crime already who are more likely to be stabbed?
So there's a few things to discuss. Obviously, this is a really complex issue, and there is so much that goes into this that we cannot cover in one B2 English podcast.
Yeah.
This is a topic that runs deep, and perhaps there aren't any complete or real answers to it. Of course, random crime happens. Innocent people get caught up in things. It is a fact of life, unfortunately. But what I would say is it's not common. It is pretty rare for somebody who is not involved to get caught up in problems. The situation is England and the UK in general has a gang culture issue. we do have a lot of issues with gangs, with active drug dealing, fights over territory, and things like that. If you are getting involved in this stuff, it comes with a huge risk to your life. And often, I'd say more often than not, the people who do die in these attacks and through these issues, they are involved in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Now, we do also have a big issue in some communities about mistaken identity. This is a really big issue where you're walking through the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. Somebody thinks you are somebody else, and you're unfortunately caught up in it, even though you have done nothing wrong. I know mistaken identity in London is a really big issue because people have problems with people, especially in gangs, yet they don't know who they actually have an issue with. They see a young guy dressed in a certain way that they don't know and assume he's from an area, or assume because he's from an area, he's involved in some way. And of course, that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm not really informed on this topic very well, but yeah, I think it sounds basically like the people who are likely to have a problem with this are probably going to be people who are dealing drugs or at least buying them, right? Although, like you said, if you are really unlucky and you find yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time, then somebody may attack you by accident, like you said. Okay, so now it's time to give you guys some advice. If you're thinking of visiting the UK or moving to the UK, me and Sam can now give you some advice for how to avoid crime and how to stay safe when you're here. I guess, Sam, do you have any top tips? And what's the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to sort of avoiding being the victim of a crime while you're here?
Now, this applies to every country, okay? It's simple, just don't be an idiot, okay?
Yeah.
If you are stupid, if you do stupid things and put yourself in stupid situations, bad things are going to happen to you, right? If you decide to go out drinking in London late at night, don't black out, right? Do not pass out in the middle of the street. You might get robbed. Worse things might happen, right? Be aware of your surroundings, obviously. Just don't be stupid. Don't do anything you wouldn't do in your own country, right? What I've noticed, and this isn't just about England, but Europe in general, is many people come from countries that are more dangerous, right? And that have a reputation for being more dangerous. So what they do when they arrive in Europe is they let their guard down and they assume, oh, I've heard so much good stuff about Europe. I'm from a place that's dangerous. Nothing bad can happen to me here. I've spoken to several people who got robbed in places like Barcelona. So I know it's not the UK, but they got robbed in like major European cities because they were like, oh, well, you know, I'm from South America. I don't have to be careful here.
That's a good point. I would say there are some pretty standard things as well. I would say there's a bit of a trend in a lot of cities right now with having your phone taken by somebody on an electric bike or just a regular bike, but probably a motorbike or an electric bike. So if you're walking down the street and you're not paying attention, you're completely oblivious to your surroundings. Yes, you're walking down the street, staring at your phone, completely oblivious to everything that's happening. It's, there are lots of videos circulating online of somebody coming on a motorbike or an electric bike and just snatching the phone out of your hand. So don't be completely oblivious when you're walking around with your phone, particularly in London. It can be stolen. And of course, there's also pickpocketing, right? So when you're on the tube in London, for example, just keep an eye out. Yes, keep an eye out. Think, where is my phone? Where is my wallet? Can I still feel them in my pockets? And just remember, on the tube, people are going to be really close, really crammed together, very close to each other. And it does give pickpockets a prime opportunity to pickpocket you. Also, by the way, pickpockets will tend to target people who come across as tourists, right? So if you're looking around like, oh, with a big camera around your neck and a giant map, like a typical tourist, then you may be slightly more likely to be targeted, like because whereas they're less likely to target somebody who sort of looks like they know where they're going, you know.
In terms of pickpocketing, honestly, it's a more difficult one to control and to deal with. But I have never been pickpocketed, thankfully. And I have just a few small pieces of advice that are worthwhile. Firstly, inside pockets. Let me show you my jacket here. Now, this jacket has a pocket on the inside, which means when my jacket is closed, when it's zipped up, it is inaccessible. Pickpockets cannot get that without literally ripping through your jacket. And you would notice that if they tried. So inside pockets are your friend, especially for the really important stuff. If you're out with your passport, if you have an expensive phone, your credit cards, things like that, inside pocket. Secondly, and this is one that people often forget, your backpack. Now, here in South America, people tend to wear their backpacks on their front when they are walking. England and the UK is not dangerous enough where I would recommend that.
Yep.
If you are walking in the street, you can have your backpack on your back. Just, of course, be aware, be cautious. And if you're in crowded areas, obviously keep more of an eye on things. But in the underground, on a bus, have your backpack either in front of you or hold it. What I always try to do is just hold my backpack if I'm in one of these public spaces.
To be honest, if you're on the tube, you should move your backpack in front of you anyway, because when it's on your back, you're hitting people with your backpack right on the tube when you turn around and stuff. So I always just put the backpack on the front anyway on the tube because it just makes sense. Or sometimes I take it off and hold it down in my hand if it's really packed, so I'm not taking up extra space, right? But yes, it also has the added benefit of you're less likely to get robbed because it's right in front of you. I wanted to say, obviously, women who travel obviously do have additional concerns, right? I don't know if you have any advice for like women who travel to the UK or any particular warnings for, like, is it safe for a woman to travel around the UK, would you say, Sam, compared to some other countries?
I would say yes, it's safe, of course, but that is only my experience and my experience as a man. Things that I have spoken to with my female friends, people that I know who have traveled to the UK. It is safe. Obviously, take extra precautions. Be careful with your drinks. That's what I'll say. If you're out at a pub, a bar, etc., be really careful with your drinks, especially in major cities. It is really bad in major cities sometimes. So just obviously take any precautions you would take in another major city and you should be okay. Keep up to date with people, let them know where you are, where you're going, so if you don't arrive somewhere, they can raise the alarm. And only use licensed taxis and or taxi services that have trackers on them. Uber, for example, you might have to pay a little bit more for your journey, but it is way safer than just getting on a taxi from the street. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as though there's a massive epidemic of drink spiking. Drink spiking is when you put something in someone's drink. It's not as though you need to be absolutely paranoid, oh God. However, it can happen. Yes, it can happen. There are opportunists around who do look for women and they try to spike their drinks. It's not as though this is a major thing in the UK, but just like any other country, it can happen. So that's the level of danger you're dealing with in the UK. It's not super extra dangerous, but things can happen. It's not an extremely safe country either, right? It's like relatively safe, but things could happen. So yeah, that's how I would describe it.
My final advice, especially for London, is research neighborhoods. Do not just walk into neighborhoods that you don't know about. What has happened a lot recently in London is places that used to be more dangerous have been gentrified, which means, old lower income housing has been knocked down and higher income housing has been put up. Luxury apartments, things to do, things to see, restaurants, cafes, bars, etc. But what this means is, of course, you're sort of positioned close to some dangerous neighborhoods where, you might not want to walk into these places alone at nighttime. So just know where you are, research the neighborhoods, know where to go and where not to go. The biggest one that I think about immediately is Brixton. Brixton is a neighborhood in South London that growing up had a really big reputation. Had a really big reputation for not being super safe. Now, the centre of Brixton has lots of stuff to do. There's a really famous concert venue, lots of bars, lots of restaurants. In the centre of Brixton, you're going to be completely fine at just about any hour of the day. The issue is when you leave the centre and start walking through the estates and things. That's when, you may be robbed, etc., etc. Once again, not super common, but let's not give people easy opportunities either. And I think the last thing that is really important to mention at the moment is over the last few years, the UK has seen a large increase in political violence. We're not going to get into the reasons why in today's podcast, but our only recommendation for you is if you see political protests, stay away, because these are often flashpoints for violence against police, violence against other protesters. So yeah, we'll leave that one there, I think.
Yeah, I think that's some good advice. Well then, guys, I think it's probably time to wrap up. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope you've gotten some good advice about staying safe and avoiding crime in the UK. Of course, if you do like these episodes of the British Culture Podcast, we do have quite a lot of extra episodes on the website on englishsponge.com. Probably around 10, 11 extra episodes or something like that by now. So be sure to go and take a look on englishsponge.com. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.